Innovation on the Edge with Microsoft Edge is a weekly podcast that explores the cutting edge of internet innovation and pop culture trends. Each week, we'll dig into how people are currently using the web to innovate, notable ways in which it's evolving, what its future might look like, and how we can create the future together. Welcome, curious creators, disruptors, and innovators to Innovation on the Edge. How does something go viral? What's the science behind virality? It's become such a part of our social fabric, but have you ever stopped to think about what goes into it? Today, my guest is Justin Moran, the digital director for Paper Magazine. Now, if there's any outlet who understands how to get people talking, it's Paper. Everyone remembers the very cheeky, pun intended, Kim Kardashian cover from 2014. They basically invented the term break the internet. And since then, there have been many, many more. So I can't wait to pick his brain. Let's dive in. Thanks for hanging with me, Justin.
Thanks
Welcome.
for having me.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. You're a hard guy to get to schedule. So I'm glad we're finally doing it.
I am too, here in Beverly Hills.
Hanging out. Well, I want to kick off just kind of by talking about your journey and how you got to Paper Magazine.
Sure. I've worked in media, specifically in magazines, like almost my entire life. And when I was in college, I studied magazine journalism and fashion business. And my first internship was with Paper Magazine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which was at the time like such a dream come true. And it's crazy thinking about it now because it's just my everyday life, basically. But at the time, moving to New York City and working at Paper Magazine was like everything that I could have wanted out of my life.
Yeah.
But I was there for a summer. I really focused on nightlife and queer culture and kind of these things that are very OG Paper topics, and really carved out my own space as an intern and then kept freelancing afterwards. And I had a column called Trends with Benefits, which was actually, since we're talking about virality,
yes.
The reason that they kept this column going is I started this, it was a trend column, and the first trend was bonnet core, which was like, this was maybe 2013, but that was like super, super viral.
Yes.
Like so viral that it got picked up on like serious news stations.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I kind of just like, I was like a dumb college kid that was really interested in the strangest things. And I basically pieced together these weird subcultures and decided that bonnets were trending. And there was like a bonnet core party that Molly Soda threw in Brooklyn. And, it just like really took off. Anyway, so from there, I just kept working with Paper. And Drew Elliott, when he acquired Paper 4 years ago, brought me on to kind of revamp the digital space. Wow. Yeah.
That's cool. So you've always kind of had your finger on what's trending in pop culture. Is that something that's always just been sort of an easy thing for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I've thought a lot about this topic today, and I think I've always been interested in finding things that I think are going to be trending versus like finding the things that are trending now. Like I love to be a part of the thing that gets talked about because I've worked on something that, you know, makes it become a thing, or I've realized someone is going to become really big and gotten in early to kind of be like an early adopter of that person or that idea. So that has always been of interest to me. So it's interesting that now I'm working on a publication that's very much so known for these big viral moments, because I actually love to find things right before they're kind of big.
That's why you're good at your job, though, right? Like that is that you're actually an influencer in that way. I mean, but not in that. You're like,
I'm like,
you're
well,
easy. but influencing people and what's going to be trending and what's going to go viral potentially.
Yeah, it's like influencing sort of behind the scenes.
Yeah,
kind of like like the magician behind the whatever the Wizard of Oz moment is.
Totally behind the curtain. You got it.
Yeah.
So from coming from someone from media, like what would you say breaking the internet is exactly? Like what are in your own words?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's creating something that disrupts the internet and makes people talk about it for an extended period of time. And I think that idea has changed so much since the Kim Kardashian Break the Internet cover that Paper did in 2015.
I mean, iconic.
Because then I feel like it was much easier to break the internet. Like doing a cover like that with Kim Kardashian having champagne on her butt, like was such a kind of shocking moment.
Totally.
And I was not working at Paper when that moment happened.
Okay.
That was when I was a freelancer. Drew Elliott and Mickey Boardman, the geniuses behind that moment. But I think now it's much more difficult to break the internet.
I was going to that's actually a question I had for you.
Yeah.
Because I think that we're constantly inundated with viral things. Every day something goes viral.
I mean, I always think at this point it's like you're lucky if something gets talked about for like half a day.
Yeah.
Or like a full day. Because we are constantly seeing so much that I don't really know if the idea of breaking the internet can happen anymore.
Yeah.
I think we saw it with, I'm trying to think of some recent break the internet moments. I mean, I think it's something like Billie Eilish turning her hair blonde.
Yeah.
But like she's in control of that. You know, I don't even know if
Totally.
you need a partner to kind of break the internet.
So I think then it's fair to say breaking the internet and going viral this day and age are two completely different things.
I think
and
so.
numbers on different levels, right?
Yeah.
So like how would you say when it comes to like, I don't know if you can answer this, but the data behind breaking the internet numbers versus viral?
Well, in terms of break the internet, Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, let's go there.
The data was, I know, crazy. Like it literally broke Google Analytics. Like it was like insane, you know, in the billions of impressions kind of situation. But I think for us, I don't know, like we don't really monitor impressions in such a close way.
Interesting.
I think you can kind of tell when something is being talked about and people are excited about it in a much more organic way. And sometimes we don't even plan for that to happen. Like I remember when we shot Christina Aguilera for a transformation issue 3 years ago, and it's the cover image of her really barefaced, like no makeup. I don't think any of us expected for it to have as big a moment as it did.
Interesting.
And you can kind of just feel when people are obsessing over it and talking about it on Twitter, and it becomes a moment in a much more organic way than like really understanding like this is going viral now.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, being a part of those moments then, because you're saying they're not necessarily planned, but looking back on them, is there anything, like is there any science that kind of makes you're like, oh, this is why it went viral. I get it now. Or can you speak from that side of it?
Yeah,
Does
totally.
that make sense?
The thing that we always try and do at Paper is, and it's kind of simple, it's like, especially when you're shooting a subject. So it's like, well, how do people want to see this person? Like, that's like the simplest kind of idea. And sometimes I think people get so caught up in like, we want this to be really elevated and we want this to be a fashion moment. But it's like, really, what would you want to see from this person? And what do people not realize that they want to see from this person? But once they see it, they'll be like, oh my God, that is such a good idea.
I didn't know I needed it.
Yeah, I didn't know I needed it. And I think we've done that many, many times. I mean, one of the projects that I'm most proud of is when we shot Sonia Morgan from Real Housewives wearing Telfar bags.
Yes.
Which that was like, Telfar is having such a huge moment and is basically like one of the biggest designers in America at this point. But at the time was very much so kind of like an underground, like New York-based name. And I remember having to kind of like convince Sonia to do it by saying like, Telfar is like a CFDA award-winning designer. Like, you know, this is like super legit. But that pairing, I think people were like, oh my God, this is so crazy and makes no sense. Like a Real Housewife with this like underground New York designer. So that was something that I was like, this is going to look really cool. And then it really took off. And I realized it's because nobody knew that they wanted to see Sonia looking so like fashion-y and like glam. And people didn't know that they wanted to see Telfar on kind of like a household name.
So then for you, because obviously being the digital director, do you ever have those conversations where you're like, okay, how can we make this go viral? Like, has that ever come out of your mouth?
We always think, how are we going to get people to talk about this?
Yeah,
is, I
and
think,
share
the biggest
it.
thing. And share this, right? Like, you know, we just had Aquaria transform herself into Amy Lee from Evanescence. Like, that it's like, what? And that was kind of flipped. It was like, Evanescence is coming back. Amy Lee is having an album. Like, what could we do to be a really surprising partner to like actually really generate conversation around Amy Lee's comeback? And it's not going to just be like an interview, like, you know, tell me about this new album. I was like, okay, like let's transform Aquaria into Amy Lee and not shoot Amy Lee at all. That I think is another great example of how we kind of are like, how are we going to get people to really talk about this?
I feel like that taps into nostalgia, and nostalgia is a big thing that like, and I work.
The girls
are
loving
too.
nostalgia.
Love a nostalgia moment. That I feel like that can go viral very often.
Yes, yeah.
I posted recently you're gonna laugh. I had a Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen obsession growing up, and
still do.
Right? And I went home. I'm from Michigan, and I opened up. I had like this like collection that I shared on my TikTok, went viral. You know, like stuff like that. But so, okay, what would you say are some things that go viral? Nostalgia is one of them.
Nostalgia
like,
is one
it
of them.
humor? Is it like, what would you say that you've learned?
Humor is probably the biggest thing that I've learned coming into paper, because before paper, I think that I had kind of like a more serious approach to doing things, but realizing that I think the function of a magazine and a media company is to be an entertainment company and to kind of like entertain people.
Yeah.
So if you start to think about it through that lens, it's like, what's going to make people laugh? What's going to entertain people? And like you said, what's going to make people want to share with their friends and be like, isn't this so funny? Isn't this so, like, this is making me feel something? Pete Davidson as the Ken doll for a actual Break the Internet issue.
That was good.
Yeah, and like that was funny, but it was also, you know, again, going back to the idea of what do people want to know about, or like how do they want to see this person? And we had teased that image as if it would be full frontal, and we ended up revealing the full cover and it was like a Ken doll. There was nothing there. So like that's kind of a perfect mix of, I think, humor and comedy, and then kind of like giving people what they think that they want. But then it's like, we didn't actually give it to them.
We didn't give it to you. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
Then I'm trying to think what else it would be that would like emotions. Like I feel like you see things go viral that are like emotional or like night emotion. Is there anything else that comes to mind?
I think relatability, showing celebrities who you think are this like really untouchable person in a natural, real way, making someone really relatable, I think is like what connects to people.
I think that's very trendy right now, just given the times we're in. Where it's like, it almost feels like, I'm saying this now, it could change in like a month, but like less makeup, more natural. Like people want it, because everyone's at home not wearing makeup, you know? Like.
But then it'll be interesting now if it flips where people are wanting more aspirational kind of like escapism things. But I think people, in the past at least 4 years that I've worked at paper, there was definitely a really strong point where people wanted like op-eds and they wanted to know the real person. You know, you think about like Paris Hilton releasing that really powerful documentary about her experience dealing with like abuse in the public eye. I think we're like learning now that these celebrities that we put on a pedestal and are untouchable are actually like, they're just like doing this for a job, and then they're real people. And that people have always said that, but I think we're really understanding it now and people are craving it. So those kind of ideas I think really resonate with people. And
do you ever look at sort of like the data of what people want? Like are you studying your audience at all?
No, we're definitely always looking at analytics. Like, and I think what's interesting is you can tell, especially with cover launches or really big moments, on analytics you can almost instantly tell if something is going to be successful based on the numbers that you're looking at in real time. But I think also we're really just looking at organic conversations happening on Twitter, especially, or other social media platforms. But yeah, of course, there's a baseline of analytical understanding of our work, but I think it's just like, it's maybe not that serious. It's just like what gets the people talking. Totally.
You're like, and I know.
I know, yeah.
What are your thoughts? Because obviously we were talking about a media company making something go viral. You have the influencer, or you have, you know, the Kim Kardashians of the world, the Pete Davidsons who have a following. Like, what is their role in making it go viral?
I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's like, I think we view celebrities as kind of like our partners, and a lot of times our creative partners. But they're so important to us. I mean, there's only so much power that we have, but their fan bases, I think, are what really make things go crazy, because they're such diehards. They're sharing the stuff, they're, you know, transforming the images, they're keeping it alive for days on end. The stands. Yeah, the stands. The stands are real, but that's cool that you actually make them a part of the creative process, because it's not just like, you know, and I work for Billboard, you sit down and do an interview, they might share it, they might not, depending if they like how it turned out or how they look. But with this, they actually have full creative control, and so it's kind of, you almost make it, it's brilliant in a sense because you make it seem like it's their baby too. Yeah. I mean, I would say them sharing is so important. Of course. Like a retweet, you know, is so powerful from the person that's featured, of course. I think we don't give them full creative control. Yeah. We definitely have a lot of creative license at paper with the people that we're working with, but we want them to be, we create our ideas with the talent in mind, and I think that's why our photo shoots are really, really strong, because we're not ignoring the fact that they like are the subject in the shoot. Like, it has to make sense in their world. And sometimes we do sit on hour-long calls with them. Like, that's what we did for our Gwen Stefani shoot. Like, she was really involved. Wow. Because we want them to feel comfortable, and when we release the imagery, we want them to feel excited. Love that. How about, can you think of any attempts of virality that fizzled or backfired? I think sometimes you know, the story also has to come out at the right time, and you can't always get that right.
It makes you think how timing, when it comes to viral moments, is everything.
It's everything, and sometimes you literally just can't know when is the right time, or am I too early to this?
When talking about now, obviously talking about the media and things going viral, but translating it now to just, and like we saw it all through quarantine, is just like random people, like accidental people going viral.
Yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts on that and kind of what the science behind that is?
Yeah, I mean, I think this past year we've seen a lot of more people go randomly viral than ever, because I think people are bored, people on their phones more than ever before, and people are creating more than ever before. But I think humor was probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, we all needed it.
Yeah, we all needed it. And so many comedians, I think, really launched careers. Like, you look at someone like Jordan Firstman, the Ocean Spray man, you know, like these like random things. And these people just launched kind of like careers off of these little TikToks or things like that. And at Paper, I mean, that's something we're always keeping our eye out for, those random viral moments, and then finding ways to legitimize them, whether it's like be their first interview or like be their first photo shoot. We just shot Brittany Broski.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, you know, kombucha girl. And she's become this big comedian, I think one of the biggest, you know, voices on TikTok. And I don't think she's ever been shot in a way that's really kind of like high concept, high glam. And our team put together this incredible concept to kind of do this Bewitched shoot for Brittany Broski. And again, it's what everyone wanted to see from her, because she's so beautiful. And I don't think we've ever seen her look so beautiful. And even when we were on set, we were putting her in like Versace and like a full face of makeup. And we were like, you're actually so stunning.
Wow.
We're always finding the ways to take these kind of like internet, like fleeting celebrities and really give them like the moment that they deserve.
It's so interesting because I think, you know, when like YouTube started in 2009, we started seeing these like, you know, influencers become famous, but now it's like on a whole other level with TikTok and like all the other platforms. It's just like it's such a crazy world we live in, and being in media and seeing the new musicians come up, the models, the comedians. It's just such a wild world.
There's so many now.
I know. I like can't keep up.
I just moved to LA from New York like 2.5 months ago, and
congrats. Welcome.
Thank you. I feel the like kind of influencer culture more heavily here than I do in New York, and I just wonder what's going to happen with all of these people that have huge audiences online, but maybe aren't like recognizable household names or recognizable on the street. But then you go on TikTok and they have millions of followers. Like, I guess where does that
translate?
Where does that translate?
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see over the next few years.
It reminds me of like, I remember being early on, like friends with like Tyler Oakley when he first got really big, and he's one of the influencers that I think he's done such a good job at just taking the right business steps. And so it'll be interesting because you see, and I just recently was at that like boxing match in Miami where the two TikTokers were fighting, and it was interesting observing them and seeing like they're just so used to having all this attention around them. But like in my head, I'm like, you know what? It'll be interesting to see people like you guys who like you just got famous for doing these little dances on TikTok, like where are you going to go next? Like, you could go somewhere great. Like, it just, you have such a platform right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, think about someone like Troye Sivan, who started on YouTube and is, like, now such an incredible musician. And, like, even in the past year, I think has become such, like, a visual, like, tastemaker. Like, all of their videos, you know, he obviously really changed or pivoted from being a YouTuber to a musician.
Oh, 100%. And he's very like he's very what's the word? Like he's not someone that's like in your face. Like it's like when you hear from him, you're like, oh,
yes,
yay!
It's such a treat.
Yes. Talking about obviously it's every day something goes viral. I was thinking back. I'm like, and I want to know from you, what was like the first memory you have of something going viral?
Ooh, God, it's probably like Kelly shoes.
That's literally what I was gonna say.
Okay, because shoes. I think that's like the first one,
right?
Like I think that's definitely the first one. The shoes. Oh my gosh, shoes. Which that was interesting because humor was such a big part of that. But I think Kelly was just in something recently, like has withstood the test of time. Yeah,
like
I forget. It was
acting?
I think it was like a song or like a music video featuring Kelly or something.
Okay,
but definitely shoes, or like Chris Crocker, like Leave Britney Alone.
Yes,
which it's actually really interesting.
That's made a whole roundabout.
Yeah, and I think Chris just like sold that as an NFT or something.
Wow,
yeah,
see, that's crazy.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting how queer people, if you think back to the original viral moments, were like the ones making it happen.
I mean,
and I'm just saying, it's like it's
Shout
pretty,
out.
it's pretty incredible.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever gone viral?
No, I mean me, like not myself, which
Okay.
I could never. I wouldn't want that much attention. I'm much happier. Like the reason that I love my job is I love to be behind people's success. And if that means I'm going viral in a positive way, that's what makes me happy, because it's like, for me, when I see an idea out in the world that I was a part of, like that feels like an extension of myself.
Totally.
Like versus it being me, the one that's the face of it. I know that I, decided on that person, or I came up with that creative, or like I came up with a strategy for the launch. Like those kind of things bring me joy. Versus being viral myself.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Overall, what's been like your proudest career moment of virality, would you say? And what were the steps that you got to it?
Our Lady Gaga cover was like such a major moment. Yeah. And I think like that went viral just because she is one of the most powerful, people in music. But that cover I was really proud of. I worked on it with Nicola Formichetti, who is my old boss in New York. So it kind of felt amazing to work on like a cover story with someone that he's worked with for so long to create another big moment in her career. That was like such a dream come true for me. And that came out right before the pandemic, or it was like the first day of lockdown in New York. And it was kind of this weird sort of dystopian vibe, because the shoot feels very like apocalyptic. And it came out right as the world was shutting down. And I remember we launched that cover, and I wrote the cover story, which was also special for me. But we launched it from my bedroom. And it was kind of this weird thing of like, crazy. I was like alone in my room by myself, experiencing like probably the biggest story I've ever worked on in my life, and experiencing that like moment by myself in my bedroom, because we couldn't be with anyone else.
And usually you'd be like in an office.
Or like celebrating at every parties. Yeah.
Going to happy hour, like whatever.
Right. Yeah. I remember like rolling it out, and I was just sitting in my bed in Bushwick, and I was like, this is weird, because this is such a major moment, but I'm like by myself. But I was so proud of that whole thing. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And what do you think next? What's going to break the internet next? If you had to guess? I'm curious.
The thing that's challenging is we always have so many ideas, and sometimes you just can't do them. Like whether it's like the talent's not available, or like we've definitely rolled through so many break the internet ideas over the past 4 years that I've been at Paper, that sometimes they don't come to light, which is so sad. And I'm like, one day I'm like holding on to all these ideas, because one day it'll work for a certain person.
It's timing, remember?
Yeah, it's totally timing. I guess like one of the things that will always go viral is nudity. I think the idea of nudity is becoming much more empowering than maybe it was viewed in the past. So I think that there's something really powerful about somebody wanting to be naked in front of the public eye, especially if they're in control of that decision. So I think that's like will forever be kind of the thing that breaks the internet. But of course, like, I think weird pairings between photographers and really big talent, or the most famous people in the world that have been only viewed in one particular way, and really shaking that up and presenting them in a completely new way.
That's so cool.
Like whether it's like elevating them, or like I mean, there are some, I think going back to the idea of these TikTokers, like they're so powerful. And I think a lot of TikTokers aren't legitimized in kind of like a high fashion way, or like an editorial way. And their fans are so ravenous and excited to see them do anything, that to see them shot wearing like a full designer look and shot by someone like David LaChapelle, like those kind of things I think excite people still.
The artsiness, stepping out of your comfort zone, authenticity. Like I'm just thinking of all the things, nostalgia. Those are the things that we're seeing.
I mean, I totally forgot about Amanda Bynes break the internet.
I saw, your People Mag.
Yeah, like that was a huge moment for us. And that was because we hadn't seen her in so long. So also bringing someone out into the public eye that hasn't spoken or been shot in a while, or has a really intense story that they're finally ready to tell. I think, again, as long as the subject is fully, wanting to do this and wanting to, bear it all, whether it's like physically or emotionally, like that's probably the most important thing too, is making sure that they're on board.
It's interesting because you're talking a lot about pictures, which obviously is the world we live in, but also like how much does, because that just you saying that them wanting to tell their story, how much is the story what's going viral versus the pictures?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, because with Amanda Bynes, it was very much so like focusing on the story. And I think any sort of photo shoot with her at the time would have excited people, because she just hadn't been shot professionally in so long. But I do think that there is power in incredibly written interviews and profiles, And if you can have that and a crazy photo shoot, like you really, really are winning. But I think people are visual first, especially younger people.
Yeah.
Like I think Paper's audience is getting younger and younger. Like we've really been focusing in on, because I'm 27, so I started at Paper when I was 23 in a full-time role. So I feel like kind of youth culture has really been the focus. And they don't really, people don't really read. My journalist friends and my coworkers are gonna be like, Justin. No, but I love like a really strong photo shoot first, and a really, if we can get an incredible interview second, because I think more than ever celebrities are more tight-lipped with interviews. I've found too. Because they can kind of say whatever they want on social media. So sometimes interviews are where they get kind of more buttons.
Yeah, that's true.
Which I think should change.
Yeah.
I think everyone should be vulnerable all the time in interviews. So.
Going back to kind of just the science behind virality with Paper and just your experience, what percentage do you feel like of the stuff you put out do you know is going to go viral versus the stuff that surprises you? Like,
I think... are you asking how much we know will go viral before we put it out?
How much are you surprised that it becomes this big moment?
I think we kind of know when something's going to be a big moment. I think sometimes we're surprised when we get like the final photos in and we're like, oh my God, like this is so much more major than we ever thought it would be. And then at that point it's like, okay, like we're going to put this out and people are going to be excited. I think we're also aware when something isn't going to be as big of a deal, and we kind of like emotionally prepare for that too.
Yeah.
It's like, this is strong. It's not going to be the biggest moment, but like we have plenty of those kind of locked away. So it's kind of, I mean, I would say it's like half and half. Our cover moments, we always want to be really, really big moments.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like you've done a great job at it.
Thanks.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. This has been so great.
Thanks for having me. Love talking about the internet.
I know. Is there? Where can everyone follow you?
You can follow me at on Instagram and Twitter at Justin T. Moran, Moran, and Paper is just Paper on Instagram.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye. I'd like to thank our guest, Justin Moran, for joining me on Innovation on the Edge with Microsoft Edge. We'll be back next week with another episode exploring more internet innovations, pop culture trends, and how we can create a better future together.